So in cases where you want smoke, you want to try to understand how it's formed. Cases where you don't want smoke, you want to try to eliminate it. Now for black powder, most of the smoke is potassium carbonate and potassium sulfate. You also get some potassium sulfide in there. Look at that, 61, 15, 14%. The important part here is that this potassium sulfate is what causes all that black powder erosion. If you add a little potassium chlorate to this composition, it'll speed up the burn rate considerably. Now, I've not tried potassium perchlorate. This is a composition that I got out of one of the books. It's a little more violent, and it tends to burn up all the extra sulfur. So what you wind up with is more smoke, because you've not only burned the zinc and the sulfur, but all the waste products then have been burned up and re-vaporized by the extra potassium chlorate. The best way to make white smoke is to use the zinc oxide hexachloroethane. The problem again is carcinogenic, plus it's very difficult to light. In order to light HC smoke, you need to have a starter composition. I'm going to show you some of the formulations using potassium chlorate, and we'll cover all of the hazards of potassium chlorate when we start talking about it. But basically, if you can use chlorate to make red, yellow, green, and violet smoke, you can also use that same technique of vaporization, recondensation to make white smoke, and that's what we do in our office, is make a safer white smoke. There's two ways of loading smoke devices. Most people press them. I've just found the technique of using some of the cast rocket propellants to make really good smoke compositions. And what I like about them is I can load a lot of material very quickly because I just have to hand tamp the composition. Now the nice thing about these particular compositions is you can load one on top of the other, which means you can make a yellow changing to red, changing to green, changing to violet. Notice how it's starting to flame down here? Because if you try to burn this in the open, usually what will happen is it'll just burn the dye up. I've got some samples of what happens when you do it wrong. So if you see this, you can recognize it. Anything that you can vaporize and recondense, you can burn. You can take this mix, okay, and either make a dough out of it using acetone, or make a damp powder and then push them through. Now you can also add about 2% nitrocellulose, and that'll give you a nice hard granule. And nitrocellulose is soluble in acetone. In fact, I would recommend that you use 2% nitrocellulose with these compositions. Granulate them through a 20 mesh screen and use that to press it. The problem with that is if you don't press it hard enough, you won't break up the granules, and you'll have this granola bar, which you light will go whoosh. And then usually behind the whoosh goes boom.